Now, with all of the theory out of the way, let's build our first simple REST API. And for that, I'm in a brand new folder. I only did one thing in there. I ran npm init and confirmed all the default settings. Since I'm using version control, I also added a git ignore file so that I can ignore an upcoming node modules folder. And that is it. Now, to build a REST API, how do we start? Well, as I mentioned, all the things you learned are still important. We built a Node Express server just as we did before. And also, by the way, of course you don't need to use Express. You could build just a Node server API, but you have to do a lot of request parsing and so on your own, as you learned it before in this course. And you can use other frameworks too. There even are specialized REST API frameworks. But we will use Express, which is a great all-rounder. And therefore, I will install as a production dependency with --save Express. We need express.js to build an API conveniently. So this is the first dependency we'll install into this brand new project here. Now, with that installed, I'll also install another package, and that will be a development dependency with --save dev nodemon, because I still don't want to restart my server manually after every change. So let's quickly install that package now. With nodemon installed, let's go to the package.json file. Let's add a start script in the scripts section, and let's execute nodemon app.js here to start app.js with nodemon. App.js does not exist yet, so let's add it. And in there, we'll set up our NodeJS server. So what do we do in here? Well, first of all, I will import Express by requiring Express like this. Then I want to create my Express app by executing Express as a function. And these are, of course, the exact same steps we executed before in this course. And last but not least, we can listen to incoming requests, let's say on port 8080 this time, not 3000. I'll need that later for something else. Let's use 8080 for now. This is a very simple server that we could now start. That will not do anything, of course. It has no routes defined, but this is our simplest possible Node Express server. Now, to add some routes and to do something with them, I will also install the body parser as a production dependency with --save so that I can parse, well, incoming request bodies. And now, let's start adding some routes. We could add them in here with app use to handle any method, or app get, app post, app put, and so on to handle specific HTTP methods for specific paths. But I will use the Express router again. And I will also create a new routes folder, which you wouldn't have to do, but this structure still makes sense, separating routes and controllers. You just won't have views anymore. The views folder will not be recreated because we'll not render any views anymore. We'll just exchange data. So in the routes folder here, let's say we're building a simple blog or a simple messaging social network blog-like application. And we have some feed routes. So like the news feed or something like that, where we simply are able to create new messages, show existing messages, and so on. So I'll create a feed.js file in the routes folder. And in there, we set up our Express router by, again, importing Express into this file too, because we need something from that package in that file. And then I create the router by calling Express router as a function. And I will export the router at the bottom. In between, we can now define some routes. And I want to start very simple with a get route to, let's say, posts, where I serve my posts later on. Not right now, but later on. So here I have my posts. And of course, I now need my logic that should execute when a request reaches this. Therefore, I'll create a new folder, controllers, and in there, I'll add my feed.js file as well. So feed.js in controllers now. In there, let me export a new function, get posts, which of course, and that also does not change, gets a request, the response object, and the next function it could call to let the next middleware take over. And in there, I want to send a response, and this will be the first part that gets interesting. Before we write that code, in my routes feed.js file, I will import my feed controller by requiring it from the controllers folder and there from the feed file. And I will assign my feed controller getPosts function here as the function that should be executed for this route. Now, to be able to reach that route, we need to register the route in app.js, which is our starting file. So in there, I will import my feed routes by requiring them from routes feed, like this. And then all we have to do here is we have to use these routes, use to forward any HTTP method. We'll filter them out in the routes file then, like with this get function here. So we forward any incoming request to feed route, let's say. Or let's say we only forward requests that start with /feed. Again, this is logic you already learned about. So now any incoming request that starts with /feed will make it into feed routes, so into this file, and there we handle one request right now, /posts. So in total, /feed, /posts would be handled right now, as long as it is a GET request. This kind of request would get handled by this controller. And now let's talk about the response and how we could send a request to that route.